Hello, my name's Emma Wood. I'm representing the STEKAskills dialogue team. We've worked from a Scottish charity, STEKAskills, but we are a real joint in terms of our board of between people, Malawians who live in Malawi, Malawians who live in Scotland, and also Scots. But I'm really going to be sharing my personal experience, and so is Abigail Maseko, who you'll hear from later, as part of a project that we created in Malawi with this amazing family here. This is the Maseko family, and they all live at the Steka care home. The Steka care home was set up by God knows Maseko and his wife, who you can see to sort of middle right. God knows is a survivor of human trafficking, and he set up this home for poverty experienced young people to try and ensure that they didn't experience the traumas that he'd gone through. So it's all about keeping these young people safe, but also empowering them so that they can really achieve something in the world. God knows is an amazing children's rights campaigner, and we work together to try and sort of challenge this statistic so that we can earn some money to pay school fees and to build a vocational skills centre in Malawi so that young poverty experienced people or young people living in poverty can get the experience, can get vocational skills training, which will enable them to earn a living and make them, of course, less vulnerable to things like trafficking. As I said, I was asked to just share some personal experiences because this was an amazing project, our dialogue project. And it was about how we did it was to really try and challenge the assumptions that sometimes because of the world we live in, and later on I'll look at a quote which is about white supremacy isn't about the sharks, it's not about us as individuals being racists, but it's about the sea we swim in, where all sorts of assumptions inform the way we think about the world. And therefore, the way some young Scots go to Malawi on school visits and go to visit places like Steka could be informed by a narrative that makes them think that people in Malawi are undeveloped and they need to develop to be more like us, and that they're going there to help them develop and to show them how to be stronger and better. And this had been extremely frustrating for a number of the young people that live at Steka. And I'm going to show you a video of Abigail Maseko later, who comes to Scotland, and I'd like you to rethink the idea that Malawians need helping, and to think instead about maybe this idea of the sea that we swim in. So the sea we swim in is around this idea that we're somehow better in the global north and we need to help people in the global south develop. And decolonisation is about trying to disrupt that. It's about trying to disrupt the damage that was done to countries that were colonised by countries like ours. And it has to be very disruptive. It's a painful process because of the sea that we swim in, because of issues that later on you'll see have been called white fragility, that we don't like being called racist, we don't like to think of ourselves as racists, and perhaps we don't understand white privilege and what that actually means. And we don't understand really properly, perhaps, things like structural inequality and structural racism. And actually what colonisation, the legacy of colonisation, is that a lot of young women, for instance, live in countries that are very patriarchal. Gender equality is a huge problem. climate change that we're causing means, for instance, that subsistence farmers no longer know when to plant their seeds because the rainy season is disrupted, because sometimes floods will come and wash their seeds away, or the rains come too late and the crops have withered. And that means that young people are very vulnerable to human trafficking and other big problems. And those are the issues that really we should be looking at and thinking about when we think of our relationship with other countries. Here are some of the original thinkers in terms of decolonisation. The bottom one being Freire, whose approach to decolonisation, his pedagogy of the oppressed, has informed our project and the way that we go about it. But I suppose looking very personally at this is how do we do this? How do we work together without being seen to be or thinking of ourselves as a white saviour? How do we actually acknowledge our white privilege and work with people who have been very oppressed for a very long time? So the children at and the young people at the care home in Malawi would also say, as a result of our report, that perhaps they too have been immersed, what Freire calls immersed in their oppression, and therefore don't challenge white people or think that's their role. They also see themselves as dependent on donors, and therefore the whole relationship is problematic and needs disrupting. But I think what we need to do is from my experience and looking at this quote here, is we need to make sure that we do this in love, really, by developing relationships and trust and by humanizing each other. And hopefully you can see here from these quotes from the young Scots who took part in our critical dialogue groups in Malawi just how much they have changed, because suddenly the young Malawians are no longer stereotypes, but they've really talked about their lives, their experiences, their views, and they've learnt so much from them. They talk in the report about this experience being life-changing. They report that they've learnt how to overcome their own challenges in Scotland and built resilience because they've met these amazing young people, as well as understanding the reality of some of the sustainable development goals, the reality of colonisation and its impact, but really developed this relationship with each other. So it's, as it says here, it's changed the way I go about my life. I was inspired by the strength and courage that they showed, so that Malawians then are there not to be helpless, but to teach us things as Scots. And in a minute, you're going to hear Abigail speak, and hopefully it will challenge your assumptions about young Malawians.
The main reason that I came to Scotland was that I came to learn filmmaking, so that when I went back home in Malawi, I should be making films about human trafficking, but I'm more interested to make films that can make girls' voices heard and they can get justice. When I lived there in South Africa, in the early days it was just fine, and I felt like life would be easy. But suddenly things changed. It was not the way I was promised, and terrible things started happening to me. I had nowhere to go by then, and it was very far from my family. After 3 years, then she took me back to Malawi. She dumped me in the street. I had no idea where I can go, but I just thought of going to the police, explain to them everything, what happened to me. Then they referred me to STEK. At first, it was really hard because in my mind, by then I was just thinking that everything that is going to happen will be just like terrible. Like everyone is going to be terrible to me because of the bad things that were happening to me in South Africa. So it was really difficult for me to trust a person. At STEKA, I met some children who also shared me their life experience. So I started building my trust, like maybe I'm in the safe hands since these friends were like in that situation, and here now they are really going to school, they're living happy. Maybe me too, I'll be like them. What I think of the white people coming to visit STEKA is that I always look at these people with like a negative attitude because I find it really hard up to now to understand why the past things happen to me like that. And I see it like these people, they have the same characters and they can do the same things to me. So I find it really hard, like maybe to talk to them. I changed my opinion about the white people coming to visit STEKA was when I met Emma. Yeah, like I can say the way she sees STEKA, she sees it in a different way. And I've seen that Emma, at first the time I met her, she was really interested to know me and to know, she asked some questions and it was really good for me because the time she was speaking to me, I was able to tell that this person is interested to know me. Why? So I was really confident enough to tell her like what I am and who I am. I said I should come with her to Scotland. It was difficult for me to agree and to take it because I felt like I'm being trafficked again. If this is gonna happen again, then that's the end of my life. But I knew something was telling me that this is a different situation. Say it was really hard because I was feeling like even the people who I'm meeting here in Scotland will be like horrible to me, but no, it wasn't like that. I found that everyone is just lovely. To me, I feel like it's the greatest opportunity to me, and I feel like I'm really grateful of it because, to be honest, at first the time I was just arriving in Scotland, going to school, starting learning the camera, I hated it because I wasn't good with it. But little by little, I can say I really love the camera and I will do great things with the camera. I can say I'm really different from how I was at first, the time I was just arriving at STEKA, because I wasn't really good in making friends and I was just looking down on myself like I can do nothing, but maybe like my life is just shattered. But now I can see that I can make a difference because I have something to say. Now I feel courageous. I see myself being someone in future